Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for the first pretreatment stakeholder group meeting for 2026. We have a few program updates and regulatory updates to provide. Before we do that, I do want to do some brief introductions with the pretreatment team. So we have Miss Amy Golden-Letty, Sarah O'Neill, and Samuel Bronstein. They're on the pretreatment team, and we also have our new section manager with us today, Christine Graff. So, Ms. Chris.
Yeah, and I just would like to say, welcome to this meeting. It's great to be here. I'm, like Jessica said, section manager over the domestic wastewater section. So that includes this great team, and we have two other great teams. We have a domestic reuse team, a permitting team. So, we're a busy team, but, always like to say with these meetings, come together with the public and inform and talk with y'all. So, thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Chris. So here is the agenda, the overview of the items that we will discuss today. We don't have too much, and we will have plenty of time for questions at the end as well. So we do encourage questions and hope this can be an open dialogue to answer anything that y'all may have. First, a few administrative items. A reminder that if your program is considering submitting a program modification, we are requesting a pre-application meeting or a pre-submission meeting just to kind of iron out those details, any questions y'all may have, and to make sure that the package we are receiving is complete. So we are requesting that you set up this meeting. You can email us at wqpreet@tceq.texas.gov. Some of the modifications, if it is, a non-substantial modification and is pretty minor, that can usually be discussed through, a quick phone call or an email. But for anything like, technically based local limits, large narrative revisions, we would kind of like a heads up just to be able to factor that into our workload. Next is paper reduction and digitization efforts. So in the past, we required quite a few copies. We no longer require 4 copies for submission. So for annual reports, modifications, any other type of notifications, we only need 1 copy. For submitting final substantial modifications, things like TBLLs, or if you've gone through a submod, we do require 2 copies for that. But that is outlined in the technical completion letter. So all of that, as far as what is required, is outlined. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. You are welcome to, I know a lot of programs send in digital copies, and y'all are welcome to do that for annual reports, but we do still require the hard ink signature to be mailed in. So the digital ones are just courtesy, and you can get those to us through email. There's also the FTPS agency portal, or sharing the SharePoint link directly if that's available to you. Text Talks reports, in an effort to be more consistent with the rest of the division, our Text Talks reports will be good for the duration of the TIPD's permit. So in the past, we've had requests, for asking for the most recent copy. And so now they are going to be good for the duration of the TIPD's permit, the 5 years. The domestic permitting team should be including the Text Talks in the draft permit package. So those should go out to the permittee at that time. However, if you're having any issues or didn't receive that from your permit writer, don't hesitate to reach out. But for annual report purposes, those numbers are good for the 5 years of the permit. The only time y'all would need to submit a new Text Talks request would be if you're doing a local limits redevelopment and we want to make sure we're getting the most updated numbers. But otherwise, again, those will be good for the permit term. Before we move on to regulatory updates, I did just want to briefly mention the upcoming Region 6 Pretreatment workshop. If you have not been able to attend in the past, this is a great opportunity for new coordinators as well as for, experienced coordinators looking for more technical sessions. And so the workshop will be held in Albuquerque this year. So we're hoping to see some familiar faces in New Mexico. I was happy to see familiar faces in Hot Springs this past year, so that was nice. So hopefully we can have some attend New Mexico and kind of make those connections. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask, and additional details are on the association's website, the link on the slide, and also that includes how to submit abstracts and things like that for the workshop. Next, a few brief regulatory updates. Hopefully y'all have heard the good news that e-reporting deadline has been extended. So the deadline extension applies to programs in the state of Texas since we are waiting for EPA revisions to our tool. So the alternative deadline was issued for anyone waiting on EPA's revisions to the platform. And so that includes us and our permittees, our programs. And so until EPA is able to complete those revisions, we do not have anyone set up in the net PPR system. So we've had a few people reach out, trying to find your system online. And the reason you can't find your program yet is because we have not added anyone into the system since we are waiting on our revisions. I did confirm recently that they are in process, but we still have not received a projected timeline for completion. But the extension does allow programs to continue to submit paper reports until 2028. PFAS-related items, not a lot of action in the last year, so just going to recap some of the past few years and some highlights. Back in 2024, EPA did solicit public comment on that national POTW influence study. They were going to do this via a large information collection request called an ICR, and that still has not been approved and is still in the approval process with EPA's Office of Management and Business. So no updates in terms of those POTWs that had been previously reached out to for doing that questionnaire. In early January of 2025, 9 PFAS pollutants were added to the TRI list as well. So they added a few more pollutants. And for this current reporting year, that brings up the total to 205 PFAS pollutants that industries are required to report on. And then at the end of 2025, EPA did propose changes to reporting requirements under the Toxic Substance Control Act, the TSCA, and these proposed changes incorporate exemptions and modifications that will reduce duplicative reporting requirements for manufacturers. So the proposed rule revisions can be found at the link I've included, and upon publication in the Federal Register, they will be open for public comment as well. I know many of y'all have seen this graphic before. This has been used in a few EPA webinars as well. This summarizes recommendations for POTWs from the 2022 NPDES memo. And so I just wanted to include it here again, since we do have some programs that are still considering PFAS activities and where to begin. A lot of our programs are in that established universe phase where they're still taking inventory of which industries may have them, and considering sludge disposal goals. We also have a few programs that are in the sampling plan stage that have begun to perform, influent effluent sampling to kind of see what the concentrations look like. So in terms of recommendations right now, we continue to suggest the things that we have been for a while, which is, updating your IU inventory, utilizing BMPs, and making sure your IUs are aware of any potential effluent guideline changes. We have also seen a few programs perform some program modifications to either limit the PFAS on a threshold or require specific BMPs and permits. So we have seen a few program modifications, but not a lot. But again, if you are modifying your program for anything like that, please submit that to the TCEQ for review, and we're happy to discuss any questions. In other regulatory updates, you may remember previous discussion about potential revisions to categorical standards for meat and poultry facilities. Well, on August 28th, 2025, EPA signed a final action to withdraw the proposed rule. And so there are no longer potential pretreatment standards for the meat and poultry facility. There's information on their webpage just to their justification. Okay, and then lastly, I am going to discuss recent updates to the 423 steam electric category. In May 2024, EPA published a rulemaking to strengthen discharge limits from the coal-fired power plants. The final rule was published in July of 2024 and contained revised standards for indirect and direct dischargers. Previously, those revised standards were enforceable beginning May 2027. However, EPA withdrew the final rule and published a corrected final rule on December 31st, 2025, to extend the deadline. And so this extends the implementation dates and provides more time for those power plants to come into compliance with those standards. So that does affect, pretreatment users, pretreatment existing sources and new sources. So for those control authorities and programs that have 423 facilities, we recommend y'all look into the extension deadlines further and also make sure your industries are aware of those changes. Oh, I didn't realize it did that. That concludes the updates we have to share. Here is the contact information for the team. And this is a list of the current team with a picture of some older faces. So we need a new team picture, but that's our mainline phone number and as well our general inbox. We do encourage y'all to use the WQ pre-email for any general inquiries, anything like that. We monitor that inbox and then route out any, thing that needs to be worked on. So without further ado, we can open up for questions. Are there any questions? None? Yes.
What is the status of the IPs and all of the information in the IPs that impact X-Talks?
That is a great question. I would need to look into that further. I know, we've discussed a few of the IPs things. From what I've been told, there is movement, but I don't know when they're officially going to be published. So
Because some of the permit writers are using ambient water quality conditions in an IP that hasn't been put out for public. So the text talks are based on unpublished data,
right.
and so it's kind of, okay, where's this coming from?
Okay.
I finally got hold of one of the permit writers, and she sent me the draft IP table that she was using, but it's not or it's not a published IP.
Okay.
And so I was wondering how sensitive would that be if we develop local limits.
Right. Absolutely. I will look into that and get you an answer, because I do know that last time I asked, I think if I'm thinking of the right thing, that portion had been sent to EPA. I don't know if it had been sent out for public comment, but it has. Is that what you?
Right. It has not gone out.
Okay. So I'll make a note, Janet, and get back to you.
And someone asked, is this presentation going to be available for send out?
Yes, after the meeting today, we do have the slides prepared, and I'm happy to share that. We'll send that out through the pretreatment stakeholder group. Any other virtual questions?
Nope.
Okay, any other questions in person from the room? None at all. Easy audience today. Okay, well, one last go. Anyone online have any questions they would like us to answer? No?
No one's piping out.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We do appreciate your time. Like I mentioned, the slides will be sent out, and also as well, if you are not a part of the pretreatment stakeholder group, feel free to email either WQPret or the outreach email directly, and we can get you added to the email list so that way you can receive notifications for future meetings. And then as well, our website, our TCEQ pretreatment stakeholder group website also does have the last few years of meeting notes and things like that. So we'll make sure to get that website updated as well with today's slides. But thank you again. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.